Is trading a business model that you would recommend people get into?
What are your thoughts on learning sales from books and experience? Like, what's the best option to learn sales?
What's the first thing you need to have $1 million?
What is your best advice to somebody in life?
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Bros Think Big podcast. This is the show where we talk about the simple and yet complicated ideas of self-improvement. Today we're going to be in a different setting. As you can see, we're with our friend Roman Sharf. For starters, thank you for taking time out of your day, joining up with us. Better drop the sauce as usual.
Take it easy on the young people terminology. I know what that one means, but like don't go too deep. Don't go too deep. Yeah.
We'll test you a little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
The story is pretty easy. Son of an immigrant, came here. I was 13 from former Soviet Union. Worked every job under the sun, joined the army, hung out there for about 3 years, went to interesting places, got to meet interesting people and kill them. And then after that, I went into corporate, post-Penn State, which is where you guys are from, and did my gig in corporate for quite a bit. And then this whole watch thing fell on my lap, and oddly enough, I got lucky because also e-commerce fell in the world. And I took advantage of that and did it for about part-time for about 3 years until I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself. And the rest, as I say, is history. Right now, we run LuxuryBazaar. We sell luxury watches and jewelry. We do about $130 million in revenue a year. Employ about 40 people with offices here, where you are today, as well as Hong Kong.
Crazy story. I swear it always starts off with an immigrant. Yeah. I mean, it just feels so accomplishing. It has to. So what I wanted to ask you is, did you take that risk transitioning from corporate to wanting to sell watches the second you saw e-commerce?
So I took a more responsible approach because I was in a point in my life where I was married. I had a child born, my son Marcus, whom you know. This business is a little bit older than Marcus, actually, because my wife was about 6 months pregnant with Marcus when I started LuxuryBazaar.
Wow.
So by doing it part-time for 3 years, I took the responsible approach without diving in head first, relying on the income that was coming in from me working at a bank. I mean, I was pretty successful. By the age of 26, I was a VP at a Deutsche Bank. So I was making a six-figure salary. This is 20 plus years ago, so this was pretty good money back then. And but at the same token, I got the business to a point where I felt that, okay, the income that it's bringing is at least 1.5 times of that I'm getting in from the bank, right? So let's say if I was making $5 a month, I waited till the business was bringing in 7.5 to give myself a little bit of a cushion, and realizing that if I dedicate myself to this full-time, grow it and scale it, eventually it will bring a lot more than that, and it did.
Wow.
According to the thing I read, you said you saved up $65,000, if I'm correct?
So $65,000 is when I actually decided to go full-time. When I started, it was only 12. But by the time I was, in 3 years' time, I managed to build up $65,000 worth of inventory. Because remember, back then, the idea was you sell pictures, right? You can sell an expensive item for 20 grand and you make 1,000, 2,000. It takes a while to build up that inventory. So at the time I was going full-time, the starting inventory I had was about 65 grand, which is not a lot in my space.
If you would go back, would you have started at a later point in terms of, is there a right number to save up to? Obviously, it varies on the business, but.
No, I actually would have started earlier. One of the common mistakes that young people make when they want to go into a business, any business, right, is to say, well, I need money, and I need this, and I need that. And if you're going into the type of business that is my business, which is trading, right, that's all you're doing. You're buying and selling shit. That's really what it comes. People ask me what I do. I say, I buy stuff and I sell it, right? If you go into that type of business, the biggest misconception is that, well, I need money if I'm going to trade expensive stuff. Well, no, you don't. 95% of all sales that take place in the world today have middleman upon middleman upon middleman, right? There's somebody, it's a pyramid, right? There's always somebody at the top, somebody at the bottom. So you don't need the money. You just need to place yourself in a position or a space where whatever it is you want to get into is selling. I don't care if it's bicycles, that those bicycles are trading on a daily basis, starting with B2B and then B2C.
Why watches?
I've always had a passion for watches, to be fair. I always liked expensive, nice things because I grew up in an apartment the size of this podcast setup. And, you know, watches is something that represent, you know, wealth, if you will, flex, right? I remember when I bought my first Rolex, this is before I was in the industry, I paid a guy $1,000 at a pawn shop in Atlantic City. It was an old beat-up Rolex. Well, guess what? My Rolex walked into the room 5 minutes before I did. You know, it's just like, hey, guys, I have a Rolex, you know? But I was fascinated with the engineering aspect of it because that's my background, engineering. The fact that something so small without a battery or computer inside can perform the functionalities, and this functionality goes back hundreds of years. Right?
Wow.
Do you know about the history? I think about everybody would be intrigued. Obviously, don't go too far into detail, but what makes it so special? At least to you, a watch.
So it's handcraft, right? First of all, it's mechanic in its purest form, right? So I went to school for electrical engineering, but I took some mechanical engineering courses as well, right? And it's craftsmanship, right? They got passed down from generation to generation. Not everybody can be a watchmaker because, look, today's day and age, you look at a watch and you take it apart and there's 465 moving parts. Today you have computers, you have CAD machines, you have all kinds of stuff. Go back 300 years, 200 years, every single one of those little wheels was cut by hand with hand tools. Think about what it takes to put that together, an old pocket watch, right?
It's pretty much
That's,
art.
What's that?
It's art. Though.
It is
Watches
art. It is an art form. It does require a very, very big skill set. And the innovation within to take a watch and have it not just tell time, but now you have watches that, or you had watches dating back God knows how long, that tell you what day of the week it was, what month it was, what year it was, even tell you what the leap year was, which year was the leap year. All mechanics, no computers. It's a fascinating machine that's completely handmade. It's an art form, and it's also generational tradition.
So I know you didn't decide to go all in with selling the watches, but what would you tell a younger entrepreneur who doesn't really have much to lose, is still 18, 19, in college? What would you tell him who's trying to get to that level that you are?
If you love something, if you're into something, whatever it might be, because there's different aspects to a business, right? So my son, for example, he went the same route I did, minus a different product, right? You buy and you sell. He does it on two levels, B2B, B2C, right? Today's day and age, you guys have such a head start in terms of social media, in terms of the way the internet is. In fact, Facebook, groups, there's so many opportunities for you to make a buck by buying and selling something. It's knowledge, really, that makes you successful. If you know your product and you understand the market to the T, that's how you're going to be successful. The more you learn the market, the more successful you're going to be. My advice to young people is don't be afraid to fail, because that's the biggest fear everybody has, especially when you're in a position where you don't have to support 3 kids and pay a big-ass mortgage, right? If you're in a position where you're a college student and you want to take a shot and you got $5,000 that's burning your pockets and you're not going to spend it on strippers and blow, then guess what? Well, that's not a thing anymore, right? That's when I was young. But
No, it still is.
it still is,
Yeah,
okay.
not to the same extent,
Okay.
but yeah.
But when you got that $5,000 that you're burning to invest into something, then go ahead and do it. Because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose that $5,000, right? And what?
You're still at your mom's house.
You're still
like-
at your mom's house. You're still, your college education is still paid for, and you're learning as you go along. And guess what? You learn from your mistakes. But there's a saying out there that stupid people learn off their own mistakes. Smart people learn off other people's mistakes. Anybody know who says that?
Wisdom.
No, I had it different. It was knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge, rather than stupid, it was knowledge. Knowledgeable people do it, and then wisdom. But I don't know who it was from.
But
Because I
so
go by
so
the
so
same
so
line
the
as
so the
Shoutout.
the bottom line to that saying is the following, and the reason I brought that saying up is you have such an advantage in the generation that you are in, the generation of information, technology, and information, versus a guy. Imagine I started this when the internet was new. I started on eBay. E-commerce didn't exist as we knew it. I built into e-commerce. It was first eBay, and then websites started popping up. Imagine the advantage you guys have where you can have ChatGPT write up a website in 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
When I used to code, and I know how to code as well, do you know what I used to use? Notepad. So your little fancy web pages, I used to write in HTML, like actual code, write them out
still
for the
do it?
page to repeat. I can still do it.
Yeah.
It's obsolete right now, but I can still do it. Think about the advantage you guys have. So if you can suck in that knowledge, right? If you can sit there, do your own research and so on and so forth, you have such an advantage and a lower rate of failure versus a guy that started 20 years ago.
Was selling watches your first approach in business?
What do you mean by selling first approach?
Like, was it the first thing you tried doing? I know you said you worked like every job on the planet, but
Oh,
as
I
far
mean,
as,
look, up until the military, it was, waiter, busboy, dishwasher, bagel truck, roofing, construction, you name it, I did it,
Yeah.
right? I did some funky jobs. I even sold Craftmatic adjustable beds. Do you know what that is?
No.
You probably don't because that company ceased to exist before you were born. But it's these adjustable beds that I used to sell. And then I did telemarketing and all kinds of stuff. Post the military, when I went to school and got out in the corporate world, I thrived getting into banking because that's where the money was. Banks have a lot of money, of course, not a big secret, right?
Yeah.
But again, I was on the IT side. In my last gig, I managed global and local payment systems for Deutsche Bank, which dealt only with Fortune 1000 companies. So I was responsible for sipping the process, $42 billion a month. Do the math, how much interest that earns overnight. Just think about it, right? So it was a pretty demanding job. I managed 4 data centers across the globe, New York, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, and London. And each data center had 20 million in hardware in it. So it was a pretty robust thing that I was in charge of, right? I had a team of 12 people. They were all out of Singapore, so I had a 12-hour time difference with my team. It was interesting, right?
And struggling with English too. I'm guessing?
English wasn't their strongest suit, but they were pretty smart.
That's a real heavy task.
So, but to go back to what you said, it's watches. Going into selling watches is the first thing that fell on my lap, and I stuck with it. I later ventured out into jewelry, other things. I tried antiques, I tried art, didn't work out. I tried to bring in other products into the mix, but for the most part, even jewelry doesn't go side by side with watches. You would feel it's the same realm, same product, definitely different client. But I managed to keep two genres alive, i.e. jewelry and watches.
Was it because you were interested in those specific parts? That's why it worked out compared to the other ones that you did previously?
No, because I would bust my ass off, commute 2 hours a day to Midtown Manhattan, Radio City Hall. My office was right across the street. It was a 2-hour commute there, a 2-hour commute back. Sometimes my days were 14 hours, and at the end of the day, after taxes, making $125 a year, I brought home about $7,500. I sold one watch and I made 8. Pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. When it comes to the watch business, or you can even go as far as to any of the businesses you've had, where does networking go? I mean, is it the most valuable skill that you need?
So, you in a watch industry, you tend to get lucky when it comes to networking, and I'll explain to you why. If you have to consider to whom you cater. If you're someone that's selling socks, you can be super successful selling socks. Think about your average client, and think about how personable that business is. If I was selling socks to the tune of $100 million a year, trust me, it'd be more lucrative than watches, but there would be no networking. There would be no personal connection. Every single one of our clients becomes a friend. Every single one of our transactions is very personable. There's a person behind on the phone. Nobody goes on a website and clicks, buy it now, $150,000 watch. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. So connections come by default. And we're lucky in that sense that I got to meet some of the biggest CEOs, some of the biggest companies in the world. I've got to meet basketball players, football players. I got to meet a lot of rich people that are into expensive toys, right? And if you think about who my average client is, think about the average person I will meet on the way. But networking is important. But in our case, it's more important to stay in those people's faces as the business progresses and not to forget about them, because the connections will come by default. It's keeping those connections that's the difficult part.
I have a question, right? So with networking, if someone's starting from scratch, they don't know any millionaires, they don't know have any like people that do anything business on their phone, how would they go about building their network and building their...
I get an average of about 750 DMs a day, and believe it or not, I go through all of them. Yes, it doesn't take me long. I have a process, but and I have a system. I don't do it through my phone. I do it.
Press like one, it does a message, two, and it does another message.
It just I can learn the first 3. I can read the first 3 words of a DM and see if that's an actual DM that's I need to answer, an actual DM that I can just give a thumbs up. Right? It's just I have a process, and we use Zendesk. We don't use if I have to do it on my phone, it's all organized. There's a whole to do. I get that question asked about on an average about 20 times a day. I want to get into the watch game. I love what you do. I answer with 3 words: attend some trade shows. If you're going to want to sell a product, if you're going into that atmosphere, or even if you want to create a service side business, right? Because I've always told my son, I would rather charge 1 million people $1 for a service than sell 1 million people, or sell $1 million worth of watches, right? Because the profit margin is a little bit different. I tell them attend some trade shows. You have Google, and they're like, well, where do I go? I say, Google it.
Right.
And you Google. Let's say tomorrow you want to sell cameras or camera equipment. The National Camera blah, blah, blah show. Okay, let me go. I'm going to go say hello to every vendor. And you know what I'm going to ask? How much? And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up my phone. What do kids do at these? I went to a couple of these sneaker shows at Marcus. What do? Kid comes up, how much? Okay, he goes on a StockX, Go, whatever, looks up the price. It's so easy for you guys. You don't need the knowledge. And the minute you see that, oh, I can buy from this guy for this, that guy's high, this guy's low, and I can then go sell it, possibly retail on this because I see it listed on eBay, Chrono24, or somewhere else for this, there's an opportunity for me to make a margin there. It's simple. It's not that hard.
It's a lot of opportunities.
There's a ton of opportunities out there in so many different markets.
Is trading something, is it a business model that you would recommend people to get into?
It depends on what floats your boat. Salespeople aren't made, they're born. So, and this is a sales-intensive environment, right? You have to be able to sell, but not in the sense of a used car salesperson or a pushy salesperson. You have to be able, this has to be for you. Sales is not for everybody. We recently, we have salespeople that come into our team As of last year, 1, 2, 3, 4 people are no longer here. I deemed it necessary. Some deemed it on their own that it wasn't necessary. It wasn't for them because they wanted the comfort of a paycheck. Because sales is commission-based. Just like if you do it for yourself, it's profit-based. Nobody's paying you a salary, right? Unless you make enough money to pay yourself a salary, right? So it's not for everyone. There are brainiacs that want to go on the service side of things. They will come into my business, learn every aspect of my business by attending trade shows, by talking to all the dealers and say, you know what's lacking? X. I'm going to make an app, and I'm going to get these guys to pay me $5 a month to use this app that's going to make their life easier. Think about Shopify, best example ever. Building websites used to be the biggest pain in the ass, right? Now you have out-of-the-box solutions. Shopify is a gajillionaires. Why? Because if you want to create a website, I don't care if you're 9 years old, it'll take you 10 clicks, and you're selling online. So it really depends on you, not my advice. It's really what you feel you are as a person. And I encourage young people to try everything, to try their job at sales, right, and see how well they do, whether it's high pressure or low pressure.
Why do you say salesmen aren't born, they're made, or aren't made, they're born?
I feel, this is my own personal opinion, and I've seen people come and go, and I could tell in a matter of 30 days of somebody being on the floor that that's not a salesperson. Sometimes I can tell right at the interview because they come in and say, what's the base salary? That's when I tell them, sorry, this job is not for you. You should have asked me what the commission structure is, right?
Yeah.
But it's the hustle is the drive, and the hardest thing is not the hustle, because people will come in and they'll hustle, right? But you just have to, I don't know, if you can't dunk a ball, you will never be able to dunk a ball kind of thing. It's just one of those things where it's not a learned thing. You have to be born with it, and then you have to have the motivation and the hustle to continue on, because you know what happens with sales? Ups and downs. You have guys that do this, and then the minute this happens, this is when they lose it.
Or next month.
The next,
like
you know,
0.5%.
which is why the number one advice that I tell every single one of my salespeople that work here is I tell them, this is a day-to-day thing. Forget what happened yesterday, whether it was positive or negative. Today is a new day. You're starting from scratch every single day.
What are your thoughts on like learning sales from books and experience? Like, what's the best option to learn like sales?
I think experience is the best option, obviously. I don't frown upon books. I know there are plenty of talented individuals that have succeeded in life that wrote some books. Some do it for the purpose of making money, like these seminars and online classes and this, that, and the other. Some actually want to share that wealth. Those that have made it have retired and wrote a book. Something that I would potentially do after this whole thing is over, but I wouldn't do it for the purpose of selling copies and making money. I would do it for the purpose of sharing the wealth with others.
What about mentorships?
I've been asked for this so many times, and
I'm not saying.
No, and I've turned it down every single time, because what happens with mentorships, they're good. In general, they are good. If I was able to piggyback onto Elon Musk today, right, and just follow him around for 3 weeks, for shit sure I would learn something, even though I consider myself fairly experienced, right? But mentorships also tend to bias you and make you into something that you may not necessarily be. I think mentorships are good for taking key points, take it into consideration, and do it on your own. Perfect example is me and my son. My son will reach out for advice from me. That's how I raised him. But my son will not take all of my advice, right? I try my best not to be that dad and throw advice at him. I only do it when he asks, and he does ask, and he asks often. But at the same token, what I see him do is take my advice, put his own twist, put his own mark on it, and maybe do it even differently. Right, that's the best way for mentorships to work.
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for, like adding your own twist to it, because everyone has their own personality and what works best for them. It's subjective.
I got a sales question. So I've been around the business, not too long, but I've been around. For me, what I found is product knowledge, top tier, number one. Would you agree or no?
When I first,
At least for my
when I first started, I was lucky enough to meet a guy. I was still working out of my basement. For the first 3 years, I worked out of my basement part-time. He came up to my house to pick up a watch. We'd sit down, we'd talk. This is back in the days. He was one of those guys they gave business and marketing seminars, specifically marketing-based, right? And so you understand, you could buy a set of 6 CDs of his course. Like, that's how far back we're going, right? There was, no podcast back then. And he would fill rooms with thousands of entrepreneurs that would come in and listen to his advice. It was more specific to marketing. He told me, Roman, and this stuck with me forever, and I use it till this day, you must educate your consumer first and foremost to a point where they would feel stupid to buy anywhere else, regardless of price, within reason. That's what it comes down to. So what you said stands true, which is one of the first things I push onto my salespeople is knowledge. Because at the end of the day, there's no hard sell. You're facilitating a product. And if you're able to facilitate that product and be the most knowledgeable person on the other end, that person will not go anywhere else because you're the one that shared with them for the most part.
Absolutely. I had a personal experience. I went to, I sell windows, so I go to shows like this. Not necessarily trade shows, but, just like little tweaky things. I got this self-defense weapon. Pretty stupid, right? Why are you laughing?
Because it is stupid.
It looks pretty idiotic, right? I only bought
think it looks
that-
cool.
Yeah, well, no, it is very cool. The only reason I
It
bought
hurts.
it is the guy that sold it to me knew every single question I asked. I knew nothing. He spent 15 minutes out of his time educating me everything I needed to know. Without that idea, there's no way in hell I bought that. I just don't see a different option besides actually buying yourself. And you're supposed to put it on your pinky. You smash.
I carry a gun,
What?
so I mean that's cool. It's cute. It's cute.
Good
but
to know.
I
I'm not
carry a
serious.
gun.
It's cute. I'm not-
The whole story I brought up is it's
And
it's
you're right, exactly right. If you walked up and the guy said, "What's a self-defense thing?" And you wouldn't. The
Oh, yeah.
fact that you also don't forget when you're educating your consumer, you're spending time and you're paying attention to that consumer, right? And they feel special. That's what happens when you educate a consumer. You make the other person on the line feel special, and that him spending his money with you, it's reciprocated by appreciation. By you taking the time, you appreciate his money in the business he's trying to potentially give you.
And as an entrepreneur, sorry to cut you off. Do you invest into your salesmen? Do you give them courses? Not necessarily, but give them the
Scripts,
ability-
frameworks. Is that what you're asking?
No,
not courses.
I know. How do I put it? What are you trying to say?
I think
Scripts or
I understand what you're asking. The way we invest as a company into our salespeople, or shipping people, or marketing people, or anything for that matter, is by process. There's a little thing in the military used to be called the SOP, Standard Operating Procedure, and I use that till this day. So every job that takes place here, I don't care if it's marketing, logistics, HR, it doesn't really matter, has a process that they follow. This process was set in place over the years with people that have done that job and put the process in place that, A, you have to press buttons 1 through 10, right? And then you come in, and my expectation of you is to say, you know what, Roman, button number 7 kind of sucks. I think this could be better if I change it this way. By all means, you have the freedom to do so. Prove to me that that's better, and by all means, the SOP will change, right? So you're giving a structure to those that work for you. I know, my salespeople know that when they come in the morning, every single day, their responsibility is X. And then they add on whatever extra they feel as a freelancing thing or as an improvement thing or whatever it might be. As far as training is concerned, this is not the job to be trained for. You are responsible on your own to study as much as you can and to learn as much as you can when it comes to your actual product. But I do demand, and I do fuck with all my salespeople. I'll walk on the floor and I'll put a watch down and say, tell me 10 things you know about this watch, go, right? And if they can't answer, I'll answer that for me, because you have to also lead by example. I'm not going to ask them something that I don't know, and in 20 years, I've kind of become a walking encyclopedia when it comes to timepieces. But at the same token, I'm still, till this day, I'm able to even learn something new for somebody who's only been with me maybe for 6 months, because information is endless.
I actually saw that off of one of your shorts. You did the same thing. You came up to a young gentleman. You asked him about sales representative, some sort of numbers, and he couldn't answer correctly, but then you showed him exactly how. So it's good to see that. I want to know a little bit more about your mindset, especially when you transitioned into deciding to sell watches. Were you scared?
Yeah,
Very.
it's not. I wouldn't say scared. I remember it's the timing in life too. When you're on your own and you want to do whatever the hell you want to do, it's fine, right? But when now you have other living beings that are you're responsible for, bought a new house, I had a child that was born, I'm married, I have a family now. I don't want to use the old cliche of putting food on the table, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. So yes, of course you're nervous. I was very nervous because you know what the easiest thing to do in life is to be under the wing of someone else, to be dependent on someone else, much like when you live with your parents. It's kind of cool to come home every single night, know there's going to be food on the table, and if something were to go wrong, you either get picked up or your bill can get paid, and you can, buy an extra shirt because dad will pay for it, right? It's a good security to have. And people say, oh, you rely on your parents. It's the best thing in the world. It's what we live for. I want my kids to rely on me, right? That's what I live for.
Yeah.
But a corporate job is more or less the same, because you have that guaranteed 9 to 5. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. You can get let go, but in the back of your head, it's like, well, you know what? If they have cuts, maybe I'll go find a job elsewhere because I have the experience now. It's that dependability on someone else. Your own business, you have only yourself to depend on, and that can become scary. Till this day, 20 years later, running a successful business, shit can go south. now I'm even more worried, actually, because now, besides my own family, I have a family of 40 kids out there that are also now dependent on me and my business to put food on the table in their own homes and their kids.
Do you use that quote unquote fear as like intrinsic motivation? It pushes you to get to that next step?
No, you use it for focus more than anything else to continue doing what you need to do, right, on a daily. So because it's very easy for somebody like me to become, sort of start taking it easy as I get older. And no, the hustle mentality has to stay. If it doesn't stay, your business can either stop growing. If it's not growing, it's dying. You have to foresee things, markets adjusting, like we just had a big adjustment across all markets, be it watches, collectibles, cars, whatever, right? You have to stay on top of things. If you get complacent, you will pay a penalty.
Talk to me about that. How do you like adjust? Is it just through experience and understanding how the market's going to move, or
it's experience and a little bit of luck. To tell you that I have a glass ball, I don't, right? Or crystal ball, whatever you want to call it. This time around, it was experience. We were here through the '08 crisis, and you learn lessons from things. If you don't learn a lesson from a major event like the 2008 crisis, were you born yet?
Yeah.
We've heard of it, though. It was one of the biggest.
You've heard of it. Okay, at least you heard of it.
No, yeah, of course we did.
But the '08 crisis was a big lesson for me and a lot of other businessmen out there. When I say a little bit of luck, I was lucky at that time that my business wasn't as big. Not as many employees, not as big of exposure, not as much overhead, right? Because I wasn't prepared for that to come. I wasn't prepared for my business to stop, for the wheel to stop for 3 to 6 months, to survive. If I had the overhead I have today, back in '08, I would not be in business. Or at least my business would be scaled down majorly, and I would have to start all over. So you learn from these type of events, but not just the big ones. You also learn from the little ones. Every time you make a mistake, every time you do something you think is going to be good, and sometimes it's just trial and error.
It's such a great thing that these little mistakes will come when you're starting up in the first place too, because when you're not as like successful or not as big, like for example this podcast, of course we make a bunch of mistakes, but we don't necessarily have a huge following yet. So it gives us more room to make those little mistakes and learn from them, because if we just make the little mistake, no one really
I think
cares.
when it comes to media in general, people come in here and they look at the fancy studio and equipment and the number of staff that even mans this entire video production operation, social media operation. Most of the time, you still take shit, throw it against the wall, and see if it sticks. Because when it comes to media, there's no rhyme or reason. It's a moving target, right? With algorithms by YouTube, Instagram, or whoever it is, it's always a moving target. So I wouldn't consider those mistakes. I would consider those trial and errors. And is it really a mistake if you put out a video and one gets 100,000 views and the other one only gets 10? No, it's really not a mistake, right? It's, putting some type of content out that gets you kicked off YouTube. That's a mistake, right? But for the most part, when it comes to media and what you guys are doing, there's really no mistakes.
There's like a lot of fear involved with like sales and like going out and learning and reaching out. Like for example, I try. You know what DM setting is? Like you're like someone goes to like the DMs and sets up like appointments. So I was like trying to look into that industry and stuff like that, and I had to like DM like a bunch of people on Facebook, and like I was uncomfortable doing it. I was just like, I don't know what to say to these people. Like, what if they just reject me? Blah blah blah. But actually, like one third of the people, they all replied. You know what I mean? And I started getting like all these appointments, and I was like, oh, like I'm kind of scared. Like I don't know what to do. Like I'm starting to do appointments in this stuff, and I just kind of just said I canceled all of them. I was like, fuck that shit. I don't know. I was really scared. You know what I mean? And it was like.
Back when I was your age and when I was a kid, before college, that used to be called telemarketing. You used to pick up the phone, dial somebody's phone number that you don't know, and convince them first to stay on the phone with you, and then try to either take a survey or sell them a product. So those things, that industry actually was revolutionized by the creation of automatic dialers, right? Because before you used to literally sit there and go like this. Then automated dialers came on, so you had a headset, and when it beeped, that means there was a person on the line. It sped up the process. It was a numbers game. But, that's how I knew sales was really for me. When I was selling New York Newsday, every time I would sell a newspaper subscription, I would make $10. I could work 12 hours, sell 20 subscriptions, 12 hours a week, sell 20, and make $200. Which again, when I was 16, that was 32 years ago. That was a lot of money. The minimum wage was $3.15 an hour, just to put it in perspective, right?
And you said you make 20?
And I made $10 for every subscription I said. On an average, I worked about 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. For 3 hours, I sat there on the phone, and I would sell 20, sometimes 25 subscriptions per week. That's $500 a week working 12 hours. Was a lot of money back then, which I blew on stupid shit, but whatever.
So what was it that like kind of made you stand out from everybody else, like selling stuff?
I learned early on when it comes to sales, especially, and this is high pressure sales. This is telemarketing. This is like you're literally calling somebody for the purpose of
especially a
selling them
random
hard.
person, yeah.
Somebody you don't know, somebody you don't see, right? It makes it even harder. It's a lot easier to sell in person. I said to myself that the worst thing could ever happen from every single phone call is they'll say no.
You'll be at the same spot as you were.
And guess what? And then I'll wait for the next beep, and there'll be somebody there. And I knew it was a numbers game. I even got it to a size where I knew how many phone calls on an average I was making before I actually made a sale. Like I knew that tonight I'm going to sell 5 or 6 deals.
And it's a
That,
lot
that
more.
also has to do with like selling yourself, right? Being able to sell yourself really well.
Here, yes. When it comes to telemarketing, it was just like it was a numbers game. It was like stay on that phone, get the next.
So
person,
how do you
the
get
next
them to stay on the phone?
It's a numbers game.
Like, what do you say when they pick up?
It's throwing shit at the wall and saying, hey, is this going to stick or not? Hi, my name is Roman Sharf. I'm calling on behalf of New York Newsday. I would like to get your I would like to get your subscription started. Only thing I need is $10 today, and the paper will come to you throughout the next year.
So wasn't that something that kind of like everybody
Tell
said?
me more. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'd like to sign up. Hold. Manager picks up, signs them up. Done.
My personal favorite approach is you would pick up the phone and you would say, "Hey, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. This is a cold call. Would you want to give me your next 30 seconds, or do you just want to hang up right now?" And as ridiculous as it sounded, it actually worked a bunch of the times. I was watching this.
It worked for
video.
you, may not work for somebody else.
Yeah,
Everybody has
exactly.
their own style. It's like quick and easy and so on and so forth. I use humor often, right? Crack a joke,
Yeah.
say something funny. But the key is also, and this is what a lot of times high pressure salespeople tend to miss, whether it's phone sales or whatever, is listening. Learning to listen to the other side. When you're a kick-ass salesperson, it's very hard. I tend to talk over people still. So like learning how to listen and shut the fuck up and wait for the person to finish and let him finish his thought is one of the hardest things to learn when you're somebody who can talk off the cuff, who's quick, and just, it's hard.
Because then people tend to notice that you're just trying to sell something rather than listening to your
Well,
customer.
they kind of already know you're trying to sell them when you call them. I'm calling on behalf of New York Newsday. I want to get a subscription going for you. But at the same token, you listen to them. And rebuttal. Rebuttal is one of the best things in the world of sales. In fact, a lot of these big telemarketing companies, sales companies, they literally have a list of rebuttals for every answer that a customer can potentially give you. But if you're able to create your own and you're able to rebuttal certain things, so they'll already get the times. Well, sir, no offense, but New York Newsday is just so much
Is that
better.
knowing what they're going to tell you kind of thing?
But
Or were they gonna ask you, or-
if you're making 100 phone calls a day, you hear every excuse under the sun. I got to go talk to my wife. Or I got to ask the cat, right? Or I get a different newspaper. Okay, well, sir, no offense, but A, the Times is much more expensive. Half the stuff they're writing there is bullshit, and the articles and the features we have on page 6, 7, and 8 are 10 times better. Why don't you just try it out? If you don't like it, you can cancel any time. Let me send you one newspaper. What happens with subscriptions? You never fucking cancel them. Like gym memberships. Where are you going at?
Where's the balance with, as a salesman, you have to be in charge also. You can't let them babble off. You have to stay the one who's asking the questions. So when you say listening, be a great listener, absolutely essential. But where's the little balance in between?
So this is one of the hardest things for my salespeople to do. And again, depending on the industry that you're in, if you're selling a cheap product, some kind of like a newspaper subscription or so on and so forth, there's no real relationship at stake, then you can just be quick, easy, yes, yes, no, no, right? In our world, it's a little bit different. Here I have a client on the other end that has potentially already spent $100,000 with me, and he's looking to spend another $50,000. But even in that world, I teach my salespeople that there is a way to be more efficient, because we had a guy in here, I'm not going to mention any names, that is no longer here. This gentleman would run circles around every single one of his clients to the tune of spending hours upon hours with them on a $5,000 purchase or a $50,000 purchase, which you should do the same for both. It doesn't matter how much the amount is. But at some point, you have to learn to have a conversation in the way where, as you said, you lead that conversation. So when you lead the conversation, you're able to end it on time, to where if you're just talking about the guy's cats or what his ex-wife did to him or whatever else, it becomes an unproductive use of time. But you have to find a happy medium of not being rude to that client, spending enough time with him, but staying on track, staying on point. Where we're talking about watches and we're not talking about the Eagles. right? There's a way to talk about the Eagles. I can spend an hour, this whole podcast, talking about how shitty the Eagles did last week, right? But but I can also do it in 3 seconds. Say, you know what? It was a huge disappointment, and I don't even want to talk about that anymore. That took 3 seconds, right? But I got the point across.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So what kind of traits do you look for in a salesman, especially when you're hiring?
So I do something extremely different in this company that not many other companies do. I do an interview process, right? And my interviews, I feel like an interview is not a fair assessment of a human being, right? If I was hiring you and I sat with you in a room for 45 minutes, asked you basic questions, I do like to ask logic questions, just to think how your brain operates, right? And this, maybe that's, did I just press the echo button? Maybe that's the engineer talking to me. I don't know what it is, right? I do like to ask basic informative questions, like how much do you know about watches if I'm hiring you as a salesperson? I'll ask you some trivia questions, basic trivia questions, not anything deep. In regards to who invented the first this, or, who is then I'll ask you some opinionated questions just to see where your head is at. When we were interviewing for the Gray Market Challenge, we put out a challenge on social media. We had 150 people sending a video wanting to be the next salesperson here. Did it like the Apprentice kind of thing. When they nailed down to 10, we interviewed 10 people. In those type of interviews, I was a little bit more harder in terms of knowledge, in terms of motivation, but also ask them, give me your motivational song. Like, what would get you up in the morning? What would get you going? Give me a song.
Rocky Balboa.
You know what I mean?
Rocky, yeah.
No, but, one guy came in and, Kevin, who is actually still here, McMill, right? Another guy said, I'm blue, and da-bu-dee-da-bu-da. And I'm like, fuck no, that's just not a motivational song, right? Like, it tells you a little about a person's personality, right? And you can tell in that conversation, the only thing I'm really looking for is not answers. I'm looking at how this guy carries himself, a girl, right? Where's the confidence level? What's the body language? Are they looking me in the eyes? What are they doing, right? I assess them as a human being, sort of get a read on a person. But then what I do, what money companies don't do, is I give people a 3-month trial period. So if I'm hiring you, let's say you come in and you want to make 50 grand a year, right? I'll tell you what, I like you. I want to give you a shot for the next 3 months. But you know what? Let's both have skin in the game. You want 50 grand a year. I'm going to start you at 45 for the next 3 months. And if you make it to 3 months, I'll give you 55 to start. Two reasons. In 3 months, I'm able to figure out a lot more about a person than the standard 30 days or whatever people give, or even the interview process. Yeah. And also in those 3 months, that individual can also figure out for themselves whether or not this is a place for them and whether or not they fit in, especially when you talk about an environment of many people. So I think that is the best way to do things. This is what I've done. And I've ended up with, let's just say, my turnover of employees is very, very small, minus the sales department, since I recently started growing it. Because it used to be small. Now that it's bigger, salespeople tend to get burned out. But my very first employee that started me 18 years ago, she's still here. My accountant is here for 14 years. The woman you met downstairs is here for 18 years. My COO is here for 13 years. Adrian's been with us. She was 17 years old, 14 years now. So my core company people, nobody quits, and I don't fire anybody because they just fit in. It's because we have a family environment with a corporate structure.
So do you think that interviews aren't necessarily a fair assessment because it's not enough time really to be able to connect with someone, or is it something else? Really?
Also, you have to consider, it depends on the position, it depends on the business, right? If you're talking about somebody that, let's say a gentleman that needs to offload a truck, right? And he needs to carry bags of cement, and this guy comes in and he's 115 pounds soaking wet. I know after about 3 hours of unloading one truck, he's going to die, right? It's a fair assessment for me to say, you know what, I want a guy that's a little bit bigger and more physically fit. And maybe ask him questions, how often do you go to the gym on a daily basis, right? If it requires physical labor. If it requires a specific skill set, like an accountant, I'm going to ask very specific accounting questions to the T of giving scenarios and say, hey, how do you figure out this scenario, right? When it comes to sales, this is when things are up in the air. Because one of my best sales guys that's here, he used to work for a car dealership doing social media. And he applied here for a job doing social media with every intention of becoming a salesman. He said that he didn't care if he had to wash my floors. He just wanted to get here, get his foot in the door, eventually make his way into sales, and now he sells over $1 million a month. No education, no real life experience, no sales experience. But yet he became one of my star salespeople. You never know with sales. You just don't know who's going to be that next star. Kevin, the Philly special we call him, he worked for T-Mobile for 10 years. one of the things that makes him successful, what made me want to hire him, is his never-ending enthusiasm, to a point where I thought it was fake. Like, I literally thought this guy was capping, I guess is the popular word. I think he was. I thought he was capping because he was so enthusiastic day in and day out. I'm like, this dude is faking it, but I found out he's not. I also found out that he's a man of God. He goes to church every Sunday. He helps out little kids around the neighborhood. And to me, somebody that has that type of faith and that type of commitment is going to be a winner no matter what. A lot of aspects go into salespeople, but everything else has got to be skill-based. You have to have certain skill sets, unless I am willing to train you on the job.
Okay. We were, sorry, did you want to say something? We were having this conversation before we started this, and I kind of want to bring it back to you. So, to the audience, we were actually joking before about how Roman doesn't necessarily like it when his employees or people, his interviewees, come in dressed properly, or not properly, to societal norms. They come in dressed with like
societal norms. I'm going to use that one.
Societal norms. Yeah, that's what I tried mentioning earlier. How they come in with suits and dress pants. I want you to kind of explain.
I don't want to say I don't like it.
Oh, wrong.
So it's I'm going to say that it doesn't do anything for me, right? The societal, what would you call them? Societal norms, right?
Norms,
There's certain
societal
societal norms when the person comes in to be interviewed, he should be dressed properly. What's dressed properly? Define dress properly. Here you guys are. I'm old enough to be your fathers, but you're wearing sweatshirts and sweatsuits and this, that, and the other. Why? Because you feel the setting allows for that, right? If you came for a job interview, odds are you would put on a shirt and at least dress pants or something like that, because it's the societal norm, right? It's also societal norm for people to have a college degree for a certain position, which I don't think it should be, right? So I'm a little bit out of the norm when it comes to things like that, right? It's not the things, if you're going to do certain things in order to impress me or to go by societal norms, as you call them, right? It's irrelevant to the task in hand to me. And we had another one of our star sales guys from Canada, Marco. He was a suit and a tie guy. When he first started working here, he would come in wearing slacks and a shirt and a vest and the whole to-do. We call him the vest, actually, literally the vest, right? And after about 3 to 4 months, I started noticing a change. I see this kid comes in, he's wearing his pants, a dress shirt, his vest, and off-white sneakers. I'm like, Marco, what the fuck? Like, what is that? I'm like, if you're gonna do it, do it. And now, this kid is wearing Root T-shirts and all the hype stuff, and it's interesting how people will change based on their environment. But somebody like that, when I know that that's actually him, he's a shirt and a pants guy, that's fine. When somebody comes in here that normally dresses like this, and all of a sudden tries to perpetrate and be like, I'm a suit and tie guy, that doesn't do anything for me. Yeah,
because that's not what defines someone, and especially when it's fake too, or cap, as you would say. Like, when it just doesn't. It doesn't like end well. And I also want to tie it in with what you said with college, because I love it. Like, for example, you're hiring a salesman. You could give a fuck if someone has a master's or bachelor's, whatever, right? If they know this about sales, and if they have this type of personality, XYZ, whatever, who are you going to hire?
Here's what it comes down to. I don't want to downplay college degrees. I don't want to downplay master's degrees or PhDs or whatever else. I think the more education a person has, I think the more well-rounded they become, right? I think their brain is developed more, right? The more you know, if you're bilingual, trilingual, your brain has developed at triple the speed. If you're into arts, like I raise my kids learn how to draw pictures before they don't go in electronics, because I think the art side of your brain, if you develop that first, you're going to be a star in math. In case in point, all 3 of my kids are, not to ring my own bell, but let's put it this way. My 8-year-old started reading when she was barely 5. She's now 8 years old, and she has just finished learning sign language. So
Jesus.
She's 8. All right.
God.
And the reason for that is because she doesn't do this.
Yeah.
And when I go to dinner and all the kids are doing this, she has crayons, Legos, anything with hands, anything that requires your artistic side of the brain to work. Because if you develop that first in a child, it goes a long way. Because then you're going to find them in advanced calculus when it comes to high school. It's been studied by Stanford. Look it up, whatever. But again, college education is great depending on. The piece of paper doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Right? It's what you got out of college while you were in college. If you're somebody that went in there and took liberal arts, you can take that and go work at Starbucks. But if you're somebody that took engineering, if you're somebody that took accounting, if you're somebody that took something that is difficult, electrical engineering is like the second hardest major in school. That's what I took. I knew how to solve 8 equations with 8 unknowns simultaneously. Is that fucking useful in any career? No. You have computers for that. But what that does to your brain and your brain development shows me your level of intelligence. There's a great example. Two-star salespeople I just mentioned. One Alex, one Marco. Alex has no college education, 0. Marco finished a school in Canada equivalent to like our Harvard, right? And I think he has on the level of a master. He's a finance guru. He's this, that, and the other. I see sometimes situations where Marco has an advantage because his brain is more developed. You can say he's smarter, right? So there is an advantage of having a college degree only based on what you do while you're in college. If you're smoking pot and taking basket weaving 101, that's not going to do shit for you. You're wasting your time. But if you're somebody that's picking up a real skill set, that's exercising your brain, and now you're able to take that and elevate yourself mentally and come back and maybe do a job that's completely irrelevant to the education that you did, because let's face it, what does engineering have to do with selling watches? Absolutely nothing. But yet, I consider myself a more well-rounded person, a smarter person than the average.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've had some friends who said, I have some younger friends who are like, should I go to college? I'm like, well, if you're not going to fucking pay attention, don't go. Because you're going to come out of it, like you said, with just a piece of paper. Only go to college if you are going to fully dedicate your time to actually learn the shit that you're learning.
You want to hear? You want to hear that story? Because that story is very near and dear to my heart. It's my son. So Marcus finishes high school, 4.23 GPA. He went to Germantown Academy, a really, really good school, right? And came time for colleges. He applies to business schools. Entrepreneurship is what he wants to do because he's been running his own business since he was 15, right? Mind you, this kid did $1 million in revenue in his business the year he finished high school, right? So he's already made more money than an average Joe in America 10 times over. So he goes to me, Dad, Mom, college or no college? And the way we raise our children is that we raise them with certain understandings that, hey, this is what you need to accomplish to be a good human being. And college degree is not necessarily one of those. But we also allow them to make their own decisions, right, while giving them advice. So this was my advice to Marcus. This is what I told him. I said, look, son, you already know how to make money. You know you're going to be successful. Odds are you will never work for anybody a day in your life. You're an entrepreneur, inside, right? You were born one. Here's what you're going to get out of college. Here's your pros, right? Is A, the people you're going to meet, number one. Number two, the connections you're going to make. Number two, you may actually learn something that will be useful down the line. Like me personally, today, 20 years later, I wish I took finance in college, right? Because that would be more useful to me today than engineering, right? I said, and last but not least, you're 18. Don't be in a rush to grow up. Go do a kickstand. Go party. Go, do what college kids do. It's a lot of fucking fun, let me tell you. College is fun. It's most fun years of your life. Yes? Got it? Got it. He decided to go to school. He applied to 6 schools. He got accepted to all of them. He even got accepted into Northeastern, but he did it because his college counselor said, it's a reach for you. So he got in, showed him the letter and said, fuck you, I got in, but he never intended to go there. I picked University of Miami because I don't blame him. I did the tour with him. I wanted to fucking go back to school, to be fair. I don't know if you've been to University of Miami. My head was on a swivel. My wife was like, you're being an old creep. I'm like, they're walking around in bikinis. What do you want to do? So he finishes the year, calls, Mom, Dad, I finished the year on the dean's list. Oh, wow, son, congratulations. It's a great job. Mom, Dad, I got to be honest with you, I didn't do shit. The education that he received in Germantown Academy and all the little prerequisites that he had to take in business schools, they were a joke. And then finally he came in and said, I'm done. It's a waste of my time and your money. I got the connects. I had the experience. At this point, I know what I'm going to do in life, and I don't think the next 3 years are going to make me or break me or teach me anything new that I may be missing. And if I am, I can always go back and take a course. Mm-hmm. That's how Marcus ended up going and leaving college. Of course, the joke is that he graduated on the accelerated program. People ask me, oh, your son is in University of Miami. I'm like, no, he already graduated. How? I'm like, 1 year accelerated program. That's what I told him. Anyway. But now, if Marcus was somebody that would come to me with the mindset that he has and the experience that he's already gotten, having his own business, and even that 1 year school that he had, and told me, I don't have a piece of paper to show you, you think I would care? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, so something that a lot of people misunderstand is that they'll say, why the fuck am I learning calculus, or what is this algebra shit, which I agree, you're 1000%, like, you're not going to use that shit later in life. It's not about what you're learning. So yeah, like 99% of people won't, but obviously some sort of math teacher or something, they'll use X, Y, Z or whatever. The thing is, it's not what you're learning, it's about developing your brain, like what you said. How they want to see, how can you get around this problem? They put out the problem right in front of you. How are you going to find the solution? What I don't agree with school is how you can't really help. You can't use other people's help, especially when it comes to tests. Like in the real world, when you're working on your business? You don't know something. Are you gonna ask someone else, or are you gonna try and sit there for a couple hours seeing if you can figure it out yourself?
So one of the things that attracted me to programming, and besides money, because at the time I got out of school, it was really good money. Like an engineer coming out of college was average salary, starting salary was about $37,000 a year, $35,000 a year, while a programmer could make 50, 55 right out of the gate, right? Because it was so much in demand, right? It was a supply and demand thing. But one of the things that attracted me to actually computer programming was the fact that you can have an infinite amount of solution to an infinite amount of problems, right? And it's that calculus. It's those maths that you will never ever use ever in your life. And trust me, I took some math that will make your head spin. One of the classes that I had at Penn State, Ogon's actually, was statics and dynamics. The passing curve in that class was 50.
Jesus.
And every homework problem took about 3 pages to write out, right? It's that kind of math. Because you get to a certain math where you say, oh, you took calculus in high school. Great job. Everything you learn in calculus is just about right. Here's how it really is. Like, there's levels to this shit. What that does to your brain development, is it gives you the ability to solve those problems. And oftentimes, reaching out to somebody else, as you said, to help you solve that problem, is not always going to be successful. And the reason for that is because you have to be able to be on the same wavelength with that person. It's one thing, hey, can you give me the answer to this? I don't really get it. But it's when you get it and you're having issues, and you can go to a person who's in the same level as you, and your brain is developed on that same level, you just don't have the experience, you're able to find a solution to that problem and actually understand that solution. Because if I gave you an answer to the test, that doesn't help you, that actually enables you. But if I explain the answer to the test, and you can actually reason with me, understand what it is, that's a big help. But test's a test. That's what school's all about. You know, you learn a task and you get tested on it. Whether it's a physical task or a mental task, it doesn't matter.
You said salesmen are born. Do you think entrepreneurs are born?
100%.
Really?
I think there's a very thin line between an entrepreneur and a salesperson, because an entrepreneur is ultimately selling what he's selling himself.
Yeah.
Whatever business you're doing, I don't care if it's a service business you're buying or selling, at the end of the day, if you're not able to sell yourself, it's not for you.
No one's going to buy from you. You got to be likable.
So what now? You've accomplished all this.
So now the last step is the exit, right? Because one of the things that I told Marcus right out of the gate when he made this into a real business, right? I mean, he's been a real business since he was about 16. One of the reasons he got into those schools that he applied to was he's, along with the essays and all that crap you guys have to submit, he submitted his tax returns. Like literally his business tax returns. Wow. He put it in the application, which was kind of cool.
That's
imagine that guy on the other side, like, what the fuck is this, right? That's pretty impressive for a 16-year-old, right? One of the things that I told Marcus is right out of the gate, you have to build a product. To buy and sell things is not a product. It's not a business, right? It's mainly depending on your skill set, right? I'm a skillful salesperson. I could have been just as successful working at a car dealership selling cars. I'd be the number one salesman and taking a good paycheck home, but that's not a product that's sellable. It's not a product that you built. By building a product, as a company such as this, and what Marcus is doing right now, is building a brand, building a name, building a team, and building process, right? That's what constitutes a product. Building a business, people ask me, what's the best advice you can give me on building a business? I said, think of a skyscraper, right? As you put up a skyscraper, it goes up floor by floor. It's usually a crane in the middle, and it goes up and up and up. If one of the corners is weak, or the basement is weak, or the foundation is weak, the building will topple eventually, right? So you have to make sure that you evenly identify each pillar, pun intended, of your business. Make sure it grows evenly at the same pace as all the other pillars, so that as the building is going up, it's a nice, strong business or a product. And at the end of the day, I'm a salesperson. What am I going to do? I'm going to take this big product and I'm going to sell it. Then I'm going to take that money and travel and retire, and most likely invest it back into Marcus's business. Because Marcus, since he was 16 years old, didn't take $1 from me. Everybody's like, oh, Daddy gave me his money. Marcus took $2,000 from his bar mitzvah money and started his business at the age of 14. And the only time Marcus got money from me is when he grew his business to when he was around 16. He needed more credit to buy shit. Because, you know, these kids that were buying sneakers online and all that stuff. So I let him use my credit card, which he paid for. Then I gave him his own credit card under mine. And he paid his own bill. So Marcus never got a penny from me. But with Marcus trying to build this product, it would be a dad's wet dream to do that. I don't know if Marcus will go for it. But if he does, that's probably what I would want to do. I would want to help him build his product, help him build his empire, because this is called generational wealth. This is called success for generations to come. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I grew up in an apartment the size of this table. Marcus didn't. He grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. but yet he did everything on his own. And my hope is that he raises his children to be the same, regardless of how much money our family may end up having down the line.
Amazing.
Is legacy something that you're striving for?
It's not so much legacy. People asked me that before, and in the back of my head, you think legacy, right? You think it's a legacy thing. It's really not. It's take into consideration that my dad, who was 40 years old, left everything he had behind, literally everything, with $4 in his pocket, comes to a country where he doesn't understand the language, he doesn't speak the language, he has no idea how to operate from a Soviet-ran country, and knowing consciously that odds are, at his age, he's not going to amount to a whole lot of success being here by the time he adjusts and everything else, because he's not a child, and doing that for the sake of his children so that his children be successful. So to me, it was almost like, oh, I can't be a fuck-up. Look at what my dad did when he left. Right? Imagine living in a comfortable place, having a car. I mean, I say these things because Soviet Union having a car was like a big fucking deal, right? You know, having a car and living better than the average guy. Having a phone in the house, that was a big deal. And a color TV. Yeah, I know. But all those things were like a big deal. We lived a comfortable life in comparison, because we didn't know any better, but in comparison to others in the Soviet Union. Now you drop all that at a dime, fly halfway across the world, move into an apartment the size of this table and say, you know what, I'm going to go work 3 jobs because I don't want to be on welfare. And that's what he did, right? We never seen a single food stamp when we got here. Never used welfare. My dad literally worked 3 jobs in order not to do that. So who am I to waste that opportunity? So it's not a legacy thing. It's more of a debt. I don't know what you want to call it.
Maybe you're honoring him?
Honoring.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. The same way where we raise our kids to honor what we do for them. The fact that they were able to grow up in a comfortable household and been given a great education early on and opportunity to do what they want to do. Their way to honor us is to be successful. And the success doesn't necessarily come down to money. One of my daughters, she wants to be a marine biologist. That's not exactly a field where you're going to make a fuck ton of money. She may save the whales one day, but if that's what she wants to do and that's her thing, then why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, with everything that you already like achieved, is there anything like that's a big goal? Like after this?
That's what?
That's
big goal.
A very big goal. You're like going after.
So the big goal is to not lose sight of life, right? There are certain things that I'm into. One of the things I'm into is Formula One. It's my favorite sport. I like it better than football.
I could tell with the big ass car.
You can tell with that Formula car hanging in the middle, right?
Picture.
Another thing I actually really love is I love art and I love history. History is one of my favorite topics. And with history comes travel and seeing places and meeting people and so on and so forth. That's one of the things we actually instill into our children early on. All of my kids have been pretty much in every major city in the United States, up and down West Coast, East Coast, all the way out to Canada, all over California. They've been to every Sports Hall of Fame. I feel that adds on to that educational part of their upbringing. And I remember Marcus once asked me, it's like, Dad, why is it that every time we have like a free weekend, like 3-4 days, we go to a different city, we go to museums, and we go to see things? And I'm like, so that when you grow up, you do the same thing with your kids. It makes you very well-rounded, right? But there's still so much more to see in the world. So for me, the ultimate dream is to exit, live off my whatever success I had, and to be able to travel the world, see the things that I like, and that is art. I'm also a big foodie. I like different cuisines. Some of the shit I've eaten in my life you don't want to know, especially in Thailand. But
Bulls, testicles.
testicles I've had. I forget which animal. Not dogs. I'm fairly certain I've had dog at one time because I lived in South Korea for a year. They may have told me it was beef. It was probably dog. But I cannot deny or confirm. I cannot deny and confirm. Listen, when you're an army guy, you got $2 to have a meal. You get what you get. So those are the things that I look forward to, spending time watching my kids grow up, waiting on grandchildren, spending time with my grandchildren, right? All that requires time, right? And it requires money, right? Or at least the ability not to have to go out there and make that money.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. What are you gonna ask?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, what was it like in South Korea for a year? Damn.
I was 18 years old, single. And I was an American GI in South Korea. It was a lot of fun. Trust me when I tell you. It was a lot of fun.
Military?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
The woman beautiful there?
Yeah. Yes. I felt like that, yes. Or at least the ones I got, anyway. But
What a fucking
So I
question
think.
is that?
No, it's not a bad question.
No,
I just want to know.
No. It's just funny. It's just funny.
Exactly.
I thought it was just funny.
and that's South Korea, and you don't want to go to North Korea.
Well, yeah, that's very important.
I think they have my favorite flag. I know that's very off topic, but
It's cool
Pepsi,
flag.
is that Pepsi, right?
It's like a
It's
yin yang
replicated or
Pepsi
it's
type
almost
of.
different, right?
It's like a yin yang Pepsi type of deal.
Really?
If you had to start all over, what would you do? If you had
Oh
none
my
of
God! If I
this-
had the opportunity to start all over, this business would be so much more successful because you go back and like, I can't believe I didn't think of that earlier. I can't believe I did this, or oh, that was a mistake, or again, it's like people say start all over. Anything you do in life, if you're able to start it over with the experience you already gained throughout that time period, you can do 10 times better.
Oh,
I certainly would have bought the shit out of Bitcoin when it was $2, but
Fuck yeah.
but
Oh, right, yeah.
if I had to start all over, I think that people always ask me, what was the one thing that you wish you could change in the business that's a little bit more realistic? At one point, in order to grow the company to the next level, I left the concentrations on B2C business. I went to B2B. That's what grew this company to $100 million a year, right? Quick turnaround, more money, more revenue, a little less profit margin, but more revenue, and therefore more margin. And it's somewhere along the way, we lost sight of the B2C business. And I think that if I would have stuck with the B2C model to begin with and pumped in the type of efforts we're pumping into it now over the last few years with social media and everything else, I think the company may have been slightly bigger today. But I also can't say because it was the B2B that got me here. The B2B business got me to be a $100 million company, gave me the connections. And pretty much, if there's in a corner in the world today where you can go into my industry, mention my name, and on my word, pick up a piece of merchandise without signing a piece of paper. So connections are powerful, especially in my industry, because my industry is very handshake based. It's weird. You can go with me to 47th Street, Diamond District in New York. From 5th Avenue to 6th Avenue, you can pick left or right. I'll walk into 10 stores. I'll pick up $10 million worth of merchandise, and I will not sign a single piece of paper or give anybody a dime. My industry is kind of crazy. People listen to this, they're like, he's either lying or he's fucking crazy, but that's how it works.
Wow.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
You took charge early with Facebook. Do you think there's a social media platform coming up that you think you can take charge of beforehand, right now, or?
So in the world, I think that the entire world of e-commerce as we know it is coming to a close. I think that you're going to see something new. You're going to see some young brainiacs like yourselves are going to come up with something that's going to be a mixture of a social media platform and an e-commerce platform, because I just look at the trends of the sales that take place. I'm very big on analytics. There was a smart guy that once said, don't set goals, results of which you cannot measure. Anybody know who said that?
I know this.
No, you don't, because I said that. So with that,
You paraphrase that.
So
Someone said something.
don't set goal results of which you can't measure. So I'm very big on analytics. So I look at all these things and I look at the touch points, right? A customer comes in, right? And, I am a firm believer of growing your business. Most people will grow their business horizontally, right? Business gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's wrong, because what happens is you create a tunnel, basically a waterfall. What you want to do is you want to grow your business as a funnel, right? So it sort of does this, right? So the shit trickles out of the bottom, and the majority of your bulk of your clientele, business, whatever you're doing, stays. So by looking at those analytics, and the more and more I see that people are more inclined to send one of my sales guys a DM than to go online and just click check out, or click the inquiry button on the website, or go to live chat, the more I'm realizing that the landscape has changed. The issue is with the biggest issue I have with that is the very reason I got off eBay to begin with as fast as possible, because I was fully dependent on eBay, right? So I was on eBay for the first 3 years of our business, and I asked myself, okay, what happens if eBay tells me to fuck off tomorrow, or decides to hike their rates or something that's not going to make me unable to do business, much like Amazon is doing with all the Amazon sellers today, right? That's why I quickly opened up my own website. So, for me to stay ahead of that game, what you do is you build a sales team, you build a name to where people will reach you whichever way possible. So if tomorrow I'm not on Instagram anymore, right, these clients will still find me through other channels. But I think we're coming to a world, maybe this is something you young minds can think of, a hybrid of a social media / e-commerce platform, where it's so personalized, where it still feels like you're on social media, but you still have the e-commerce component to it. And they're doing it anyway. The product placements within your listings now on Instagram with TikTok and shopping and this, that, and the other, it's all slowly being integrated. I mean, even WhatsApp. Right now, WhatsApp in outside of the United States already has shopping platforms within it, right? Today, it started as a chat tool. Today, it's still a chat tool here in America with the ability to create spaces, communities, whatever. But you go to like India, people shop for groceries on WhatsApp, so it's getting there.
I had no idea.
When I think of a hybrid of like what you said, how it's going to transition into that, if anything, I think of courses actually, because you have the influencer, aka the social media, and then you have the course itself, being the e-commerce aspect to it. Is that kind of what you meant?
I don't know, because I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I just have, sometimes you get that gut feeling because, yes, some of it is based on certain analytics and consumer behavior as you're watching it within your own company, but, as big as my company is on a global scale, it's not even visible. So it's analytics that I take from within. I look at industry trends. I look to see what competition is doing, how they're selling their stuff, and I make my own conclusion. What's going to happen in the future? Who the hell knows? Another Steve Jobs maybe is yet to be born. Who knows?
Who knows?
So I've seen your videos and I see you guys go to like different places to buy the watches, kind of flip them. So like fix them up, change some of the stuff in it and then resell them, right? So
Not exactly.
No,
So
not
what
like
you
that?
see what you see in the videos is, we'll go to trade shows, right? And a lot of the trade shows is just that. You buy, sell, trade, right? So we will sell certain things at a trade show. We'll also purchase certain items at a trade show. As far as the fixing them up and selling, we fix up every watch that comes in. So if I'm buying a pre-owned product, it's going to go through my service process because I warranty it for 3 years, which is not a small thing because you're warranting something that can break and it's expensive to fix, right? So yes, we do go to lots of different places. I have since scaled down my travel to trade shows from when we were doing heavy duty B2B, we were doing up to 20 trade shows a year, as close as New York and as far as Hong Kong. So I have an office there. But now that, we're concentrating mainly on B2C, we're scaling that down, and majority of the trade shows are either there for the purpose. We try to do only those trade shows that are open to the public, where anybody can come in, and it serves two purposes: face-to-face with clients, obviously content, which is a big part of our, company here, because people love watching me negotiate or anybody here negotiate over a $300,000 deal. It makes for good content, but at the same token, it's all real. This is what we do. If somebody was willing to watch us 24/7 or every single minute of the day, of a work day, whether we're here at a trade show with a camera on every single one of my salespeople, it'd make for a hell of a show. Just nobody's going to sit around and watch 9-hour videos a day. That's it.
And get your name out there too, right? Meet new customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now with the power of social media, with the following that we've created, remember, we're in a very, very small space. Like the space of watches on YouTube is tiny. If I was doing makeup tips, and the production that I would have 20 million followers at
Charlie
this point, right?
D'Amelio, you're topping.
Right? But the space that we're in is so small because there's not a lot of people out there that are interested in watches, right?
That's true.
Who'd you call Charlie? Who?
You don't know Charlie D'Amelio?
No, who's that? Is
Is
that the guy that looks like a girl?
TikTok.
no.
That's James Charles.
Who's that?
No,
James
that's
Charles.
No, because I
Bruce
remember my
Jenner.
daughter bought some makeup, and she's like,
we're
I got this new makeup. And I'm like, that girl is really pretty. She's like,
Kim
that's,
Kardashian?
she's like, that's a guy. I'm like, no fucking way, this is a guy.
Yeah, he's
What did you say? What is his name?
What are you talking about?
James Charles.
James Charles. She showed me. So his picture is on the makeup thing, right?
Oh my god.
And I'm looking, I'm
Fell
like,
for that?
she's kind of cute. And my daughter goes, that's a he, Dad. I'm like, no, I don't fucking believe it. So she Googles it,
Crazy.
But listen, I guess she's really good at makeup. I mean, what are you going to do?
You poor soul. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, look like a cute girl. What
I'm
do I know?
sorry. That is
But,
disgusting.
but the space that we're in is so small that it's very easy to become a celebrity in a small space. If you're somebody that's in a very, very niche market where, the numbers are so small, it's not that hard to become a celebrity. So 100,000 followers on a watch channel is a lot more powerful than 1 million followers, let's say, on a gamer's channel, right? That's what I'm getting at.
Who would you say is your biggest, like clients in terms of like buying your watches? Celebrities or like the age gap too?
There is no such thing. It's such a moving target every time because remember, it's also dependent on the product that you have or don't have,
Yeah.
right? And the product diversifies all the time. It's also very dependent on trends. So I would say a little bit of everybody. Yes, I would love to deal with nobody but, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
But for the most part.
But for the most part, it's your average client is somebody that has a net worth of at least $500,000 plus. And when I say net worth, I mean like that money in the bank that has that type of expandable income, right? It's going to be, I would say, more than half people that work for themselves versus those that work for somebody else.
Should we get to 5 questions?
Bring it in.
So we have 5 questions for every guest, and then at the end you ask a question for our next guest, and we also ask you a question from the previous guest. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So first one, what is your best advice to somebody in life?
My best advice for somebody in life is dream big and take small steps to get there.
What is your driving factor? What is that keeps you going?
My family.
What do you value the most in a person? No. No, we have 5 questions for every single.
I got you.
What did I ask? What do you value the most in a person?
Honesty.
Why is that?
I can't stand a fake motherfucker. I don't know. Honesty is the best policy.
Goes a long way, yeah.
And look at the clothes. Says it all.
What would you say is the biggest issue going on right now, like with people as individuals and as a whole, and how do you think you would overcome that problem?
Repeat that. The biggest.
Like, what are people facing in today's society that you see as an issue, and how do you overcome that?
Lack of self-confidence and anxiety, and a tremendous influence of media, social media, and media around them, to where they can't be their own man or woman.
So true.
What is something
true.
negative that you hear from people that you just completely disagree with?
Something negative that I hear from people that I completely disagree with. Shit.
I'm not confident in myself. That's your one.
Or words that they just throw out that's just like negative to you, at least.
So for me, what I can't stand is haters, and I can't stand a stupid argument. Right? When somebody starts to argue with me, and I realize that person is just downright dumber than the bottom of my shoe, I can't stand somebody who follows a narrative and then goes to bring forth the point of which he knows nothing about and can't stand behind his argument, with the exception of that he will only listen to his opinion and not have the
So somebody
brain.
that's closed-minded, yeah.
Yeah, no, somebody doesn't have the brain capacity to have a proper argument and actually understand both sides of the story.
What do you do in that scenario?
I'll punch him in the face.
No, they're just,
Does that
they're
ever
just not
happen?
educated on
No,
what
no,
you're
I don't. I walk away because you can't fix stupid, and arguing with somebody that's a little bit smarter than the bottom of your shoe is makes you stupid.
Yeah.
You don't. It's like in poker, they say, you don't bluff a sucker. It's the same thing.
This is the question from Joe Bograd, your close friend, actually.
How do you continue to excel in everything when there's unforeseen circumstances? That's what he said.
I believe in God.
God, faith.
Yes,
That's beautiful.
regardless of what religion you are, it doesn't really matter. If you have faith in a higher power, you can always get by through good times or bad times.
I was gonna mention earlier because you guys we were talking about honoring like your parents, like whatever, like you owe a debt to your dad or whatever, or your father.
Look at it as a debt. I feel like more
Just-
responsibility, I guess.
Yeah, it's like in the Bible, like one of the commandments are honor your mother and your father, and it kind of just reminded me of that. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it's a lot of things a lot of values that people live by, whether they're religious or not, do come from the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, whatever your faith may be.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So now I have to have a question.
So
Yeah,
for
yeah.
next guest.
Write down.
Oh yeah.
It's an easy question, and I think you guys heard me ask this question. Did I ask this question at Penn State? What's the first thing you need to have $1 million?
Oh, you did. I actually answered. You told me I'm wrong.
Yeah. So the question for my next.
$1.
Yeah, there you go. You're right. The answer.
I got it.
What is the first thing you need to have $1 million?
I
And
said
everybody-
it, but
My answer was
you might have to
time.
come up with a different.
Time, this, that, and
Or I'm just gonna beep it.
What is-
I'm just gonna beep it.
What is the first thing you need in order to have $1 million? The first thing you need.
First thing you need.
What do you say that there's?
I wanna think it's.
Yeah, there's actually a lot.
No,
of
but
it's
but my answer is extremely simple, and it actually has meaning behind it. The answer to that question is you need to have $1. What a lot of people tend to lose sight of is when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to being a businessman, when it comes to doing that, the value of the dollar is tremendous because money makes money in any business scenario, right? Especially if you go into a business scenario such as mine. To have $1 million, you need to have $1 first, and then 2, 4, 8, and so on and so forth. Because nobody has ever heard of a successful broke businessman, right? So money management, both on a personal level and a business level, is the most important aspect of any business, especially if you're talking about a trade type of business.
You gotta spend money to make money.
But you have to have that money,
Uh-huh.
right?
you
And
can't just start in the middle. You have to.
Yeah.
you need
earn your way up in one
you need to have money. I paid myself a salary the minute that I started my business full time. My first salary was $250 a week. That was my way of separating business from personal, so I didn't have all my eggs in one basket. Till this day, I take home a salary, and whatever my business may be worth, to me, it's worth zero until it's sold. Right now, this is my way of providing a lifestyle and an income for myself and my family being able to put away money, diversify my investments on a personal level rather than having all my money in this business. Because at the end of the day, if I'm able to get a 10% return here almost on a daily basis, wouldn't it make sense for me to take all my money and put it in here? No. Because personal is personal, business is business, and you need to learn how to do that early on. First thing I told Marcus, start paying yourself a salary, and he did when he was 16.
So wait, how do you do that?
It's very simple. I'm an employee of my own company. I have a salary. I'm a CEO. I get X amount of dollars a year as a salary.
okay.
Because you know what? If you are a business and you're a one-man operation, how do you calculate expenses?
Correct.
Oh, you have my rent. Okay. Well, what's your time worth? Your time is worth money. And if you don't pay yourself, even though if you're a one-man operation, you absolutely should from day one because your time is worth money. So later on when you're expanding and you're hiring people, and you're possibly hiring somebody to basically take away, how did my company grow from a basement operation, a one-man show? I started hiring people to supplement certain things that I was doing on my own. That costs money. What is that money, right? That means I'm worth this because I was doing this so many jobs, and this is what I'm doing right now. So my salary now should be this based on what the business allows, right? I should be able to comfortably live off of my salary alone, not counting on a business draw or whatever else I can take from the business. Right? I'm lucky to have a business that's successful enough to be able to take a draw every month outside of my salary, right? That's me being a business owner. But my salary is my salary. It's my time. It's me sitting with you guys, and the bill is running.
Right.
Very well said.
When would you say it's the best time to already start doing that? I mean, 'cause when
You have to
a
look at your
small business-
financials of your business because the easiest way to accumulate that money, okay, is first of all, first thing you should learn is to accrue for your existing business expenses. If you know your expenses are X, start accruing for them because it's a lot easier to write a check for $5 a week than a check at the end of the month for $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, look at what your business is making. Look at your profit margin and say, how much of an expense can I afford if I were to hire somebody else to do my job? I would be willing to pay this person this, and my business can afford it, so pay yourself that. If you have aspirations to grow, you can always go back to your own savings that you've saved up from paying yourself and invest it back into the business as an investment.
Right. Yeah.
Investors actually love seeing that. Private equity firms and banks, they love to see personal investment back into the business. It's actually a big plus. If you have debt on the book to the owner of the company, let's say I brought $1 million back into my business, banks see that as a positive rather than a negative.
Just curious, what do these guys do from 9 to 5 here, like at the computer and stuff today? They
Which
call
ones?
the customers, I mean, the guys that were sitting by the computers.
So you're talking about, if you're talking about the sales guys, they do a tremendous amount of things. They're either on the phone, they're either in their DMs, they're either in Zendesk, answering inquiries, following up with old customers, reaching out to new customers. So I ask my salespeople to be reactive and proactive at the same time. So they need to be reactive of all the business that's coming in, and we have hundreds of inquiries that come in daily. The problem is, if you noticed, you don't really hear the phones ring. You know why? Nobody calls anymore. People want to text. People want to DM. People want to WhatsApp. I remember 15 years ago, you'd walk into my office, the phones would be ringing. Right now, the phone calls that you get are like business-related phone calls. Somebody from the bank, somebody from UPS, or something like that. Very rarely do you see people call in. Ask yourself a question. When was the last time you went into a website and actually called them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, never?
What is that like with time, though? Doesn't that take more time? Like,
No, it's actually
texting and stuff?
it's actually a lot
oh,
faster.
faster?
Of course, it's faster because a phone call with a client on the phone will take a lot longer than a few text messages.
Yeah.
Because then you're not going to start talking about the Eagles via text.
Yeah.
You get to the point, you answer the questions, you follow up later.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I did see that as a top 5 pattern of very successful people is they don't call. That simple idea of getting straight to the line.
I have a golden rule. If a text or communication takes more than, I don't know, a paragraph, I will pick up the phone and make a faster phone call. If I know that I have to write out an essay, it's faster to explain it in person. But you do it in a way where you teach yourself not to get away. Hey, if you call to make a point across, you make your point across, and you get off the phone.
Okay, yeah, I had the wrong idea then. Because I thought it was like a conversation through a text.
Of course, it's conversations, but they're still
not like a
quicker
long
and to the
one?
point. You know what I mean? Like, if you have to sit there, and get into intricacies of a particular watch or discuss an open topic, how much does this watch cost and what are the functionalities? It costs this much. This is what it does. Okay, thanks. I'll come back to you. But if the person, can you tell me about the history of this watch? Who was the original watchmaker? What was the invention behind it? And what do you think of the market price over the last 5 years on this watch? How am I going to fucking answer that in the text? I'll answer a lot
Yeah.
faster via the phone.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, With that being said, we have a slogan that we like to end our videos.
No, wait,
Before,
what about quote of the-
where can they find you?
Oh, my name, Roman Sharf. Just Google me. You'll find me, and you'll find me everywhere.
Every single platform.
What about
guys.
quote of the
We'll
day?
put his
shit.
accounts and link in the description and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Just real quick, you do have. Do you know what that stands for?
Dude,
I'm gonna
Josh,
ask.
shut
Okay,
the
you
fuck up, bro.
The QOFD.
What do you think the
what does that
QOFD
stand for?
Quote of the day.
That's what it should be. That's what it should be. But this immature fuck.
FD.
QOFD. Sounds like quote of the day.
It is quote of the day. But Josh, one of these
quote of
fuckers
fucking day.
Oh
It's
my
quote
god.
of fucking
Grow up.
I'm still gonna say. quote of
God.
fucking day.
Discipline is the best form of self-love.
Yes, I saw that on TikTok. I forget the guy's name or anything, but I thought it was a very powerful message for us.
It is a powerful message, but it also can make you a bit uptight because there's nothing wrong sometimes to relaxing and getting away from whatever disciplines you have on a daily basis and say fucking kick up your feet and read a book.
That's true.
And as
But
many
isn't
times,
reading
as
a
many
book
times,
also discipline?
and I say that because oftentimes I'm in the office and I'm like, you know what, I'm just not having one of those days. Fuck it, I'm just gonna take off and come back tomorrow, start again. I've yet to do that, but I wish I could live more outside of that sometimes. And what else you got on there?
Interesting.
But it's just very effective to be in that.
The shout out just says, I like this. God bless y'all. Keep grinding by Trevin Lee on YouTube. Obviously, things like that just make a man smile.
Yeah.
I bet you
Thank
get
you.
all those
Thank you.
all the time, but it's important.
Yeah,
It's-
appreciate
it's
the
little
comment.
things should matter, at least to me.
Well, it was an honor.
Yeah.
Thank
Guys,
you
thank
for
you so
sharing that
thank you for
information.
having me. I appreciate it. I don't think I've ever been on a podcast where 4 people interviewed me. I've done a fair share of these, but this is kind of cool. I think everything kind of gelled, and I think it's a really good format. Let me know when this
Hopefully we
thing
can do it again.
Welcome
I was
to
gonna
the
say,
third
maybe we'll have to
family.
do it again.
We can do it again. Let me know when this thing comes out. I'll make sure to repost it everywhere. Maybe you guys can get a bit of an older audience that maybe follows me and see
We
what
really
their thoughts.
appreciate that.
Because one of the things that I've always said is that I can spend hours upon hours giving young people advice, but what these young people don't realize is in conversation I get advice back from you because you have a different outlook on life. You're a younger generation, you're the future. So it's actually useful for somebody that's older to have a conversation with someone that's younger, where in hindsight it feels like, I'm giving you all the advice. In reality, I get a lot of stuff out of this by being interviewed by guys like you. So thank you for having me.
And that's how you learn words like cap.
Think
There you
big.
Grow big.
Big.